All right, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sue Juder. I am the Marketing Specialist here at Business Machine Technologies. I want to welcome all of you to today's webinar as we review our IT Health Check Risk Assessment Program. Before we begin, I just want to remind everyone we will be holding a brief Q&A session at the end of the presentation, so please hold any questions to the end. And in addition, we will be providing the codes to redeem the promotional Grubhub gift card, and that will be given towards the end of the presentation as well. All right, so let's begin. First, who is Business Machine Technologies? Well, we've been in the IT services industry for over 27 years. We have a number of accolades under our belt to include being named to the CRN Top 500 Managed Service Provider list. And we are also ranked number 2 in New Jersey for cybersecurity by NJBiz and by the NJBiz readers. We offer a range of services to include managed IT, data and infrastructure solutions, IT support, cloud services, security, and IT advisory consulting. And here at BMT, client satisfaction is very important, and it is at the forefront of everything that we do. Now, a little bit about today's presentation. Today's presenter, my colleague Stu Smith is the Vice President of Business Development here at BMT. He's been with the company for 25 years. Stu is a former senior network engineer, and he currently holds the role of IT advisor and account manager. In addition, Stu is a certified information security manager, and that is a top credential for those who develop, build, and manage enterprise information security programs. So with that, I am going to turn the deck over to my colleague Stu, and we will begin today's presentation.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Let's get right to it and start off with answering the question, why do you need our IT Health Check Risk Assessment? We receive many referrals from clients who know someone that needs a third-party risk assessment performed. Our IT Health Check Risk Assessment report provides this deliverable and more. We have several clients whose strategy for growth include acquisitions. They engage us to investigate the target's IT systems, so they have a clear understanding of the possible investments required post-sale. These costs are then factored into the negotiations. You have a good IT team, let's say. Their heart's in the right place. But do they have over 27 years of organizational experience designing, building, and implementing enterprise-level IT systems? At BMT, we are proud of the fact that we bring enterprise-level IT solutions and services to the small to medium business. We use our economy of scale from our enterprise clients to implement the same processes and expertise that was previously unaffordable for our small to medium-sized business clients. Conversely, you may be responsible for IT at your organization and have made recommendations to the business which has not been acted on. Since our report is fact-based, it will back your recommendations and can help you get the funding you need to sleep better at night. Lastly, you can't move forward until you understand where you are. We're all subject to working inside the box. Getting an outside review highlights what you don't know or maybe habitually overlooking. So let's move on to what is the BMT IT Health Check Risk Assessment. In our proprietary IT Health Check, we assess how your IT systems match up to our 27+ years of established best practices. The management and technical teams review the items we score on quarterly, and we're typically adding about 4 to 6 items per year. This keeps the report current and meaningful as the technology landscape changes. Areas of analysis include these 10 categories. Later in the presentation, we'll review some sample items from each. To gather our findings, a senior network engineer performs an on-site audit of your systems. We then prepare a draft report and review this report with your IT management team. This meeting typically lasts 45 minutes to an hour. Their feedback is critical. Based on their input, we rescore the report for their final version. As this service identifies the risks associated with technology in the business, focus will be given to security as it relates to regulatory defined best practices included in HIPAA, PCI DSS, and NIST compliance requirements, as well as others. Should you continue to work with BMT, the IT Health Check document will serve as an ongoing scorecard and roadmap for continuous improvements. First and foremost, we've designed the IT Health Check to be easy to read and understand. As you can see from this screenshot of an actual report, we provide two methods of scoring: category scoring up top and item scoring down below. In each case, we score critical concerns in red. We score an item yellow that needs discussion or work. Many times, as the result of the discussion, we agree to score the item green, which represents all clear. With these colors, you can see at a glance, the category scoring looks much worse than the item scoring section. This is because we take the lowest item score for each category as the category score. This provides insight into where your concerns are. We score 10 points for green, 5 for yellow, 0 points for critical concern. So if you are all clear across all categories, you'd get a perfect score of 100. This company has a category score of 45, but as you can see from the item scoring section, 90% of the items we've scored for them are all clear. And I want to reiterate here that this final score is after the input of the client's management team. They agree that these areas still present concern. With this knowledge, they can prioritize resources and spending on these areas to reduce the operational risk they have. It also helps them plan their upgrades and investments to include these critical areas. So let's move on and take a look at some key items in each of the categories. We start with the first category being backup because this is the most important thing to have. When all your other security measures fail, your backup is what we can count on to recover your data. We score 13 items in this category, and today we'll review 3 key items. First is retention policy. This details all the recovery points that are available to restore from. You may notice we've switched the color green here to a lighter shade. We found the primary colors used on the cover page to be just a bit distracting when you get into the main report. Next up is recovery point objective and recovery time objective. The easiest way to explain recovery point objective is to ask the question, how many hours of work are we willing to lose? In this case, we're backing up every 4 hours, so we will lose at most 4 hours worth of work if we discover some data is missing or corrupted. For recovery time objective, this is a measurement of how long it will take to restore the data we need. In this case, it's going to take an average of 1 hour to restore files or folders once the request for a restore has been put in. Increasing your retention policy with more recovery points and lowering the times of either the recovery point objective or recovery time objective will increase the cost of the solution you implement. Next up is continuity, because this goes hand in hand with backup. When disaster strikes, are you able to recover? Before I get started on these items, I'll draw your attention to the fact that these 3 items here have an X between the item description and the scoring color. This indicates that this item is required by regulatory compliance. Based on your business's compliance requirements, we'll advise you on what is required and what technology is available to assist you with compliance. That said, some key items in the continuity category are, is your data stored off-site? If it isn't off-site and there's a fire, you'll have nothing to restore from. Is the backup media password protected and encrypted? As a client, do you participate in the disaster recovery testing process? What I mean here is your IT team does the restore and they think everything looks good, but is someone from the business logging in to confirm the data is workable and from the date and time it was restored from? We also look at recovery point objective and recovery time objective for your disaster recovery solution. Once again, shortening the amount of time for both of these, but much more so for the recovery time objective, increases what your solution costs. We guide our clients in choosing the best values based on their risk tolerance and budgets. Next up is our security category. This category is the most extensive, with 60 scoring items over 5 subcategories. And whenever we do an IT health check for a new client, more often than not, I guess I'd say about 70% of the time, this important setting, account lockout threshold, has not been changed from the default. That default setting is 0. This means that someone can keep trying to guess your password without the account being locked. Simply setting this to 6 wrong attempts in 5 minutes, which is the minimum requirement by PCI DSS, will lock the account. When a would-be hacker sees that they can't keep guessing passwords with impunity, they're simply going to move on. For the next 2 items, you may have heard of the acronym IoT. It stands for Internet of Things, meaning the internet is now made up of much more than computers. There are smart doorbells, garage door openers, TVs, and so on. In the business setting, we have network printers, multifunction copiers, wireless access points, IP cameras, network attached storage, right? All these devices are connected to our network and are running a mini operating system. Hackers now look to gain a foothold on these devices after compromising a PC. Your IT team may have gotten an alert about an infection on the PC, but by the time they clean it, the hackers have moved on to an IoT device. So it's super important to change the default password of these devices at minimum. More security conscious clients may also go segregate them on their own separate network. But in either case, it's also important to check for firmware updates and security patches and apply them regularly. And this isn't something, unfortunately, that's been automated. Usually for each of these devices, you got to log into each one, go to the website and see if there's an update. The email category is next, a critical communication tool. You may ask, why are we scoring backup again? Well, most businesses have email in the cloud now. They are relying on Microsoft to back up their email. But what isn't often known is Microsoft only keeps the last 30 days of email backed up. If you notice something missing on day 31, you're out of luck. Their restore process is also limited. If you have emails organized in folders and subfolders, unfortunately, this is all going to be lost. When Microsoft restores your mail, it's all restored in bulk back to your inbox. As you can see from the notes, we left this item scored yellow as there is additional discussions or work to be performed. In the server categories, we look to see if you have redundant power supplies, network cards, or hard drives in your servers. This will allow a single component to fail, and your business will continue to operate until the replacement parts arrive. Installing drivers and updating the motherboard's BIOS and the firmware of other components in the server in a timely fashion is recommended by the manufacturer. But often it isn't done because it requires downtime to be scheduled with the business. And the mentality of some IT professionals is, if it isn't broke, why fix it? But if you have an issue with a server, say it's slowing down, hanging up, or rebooting, when you call the manufacturer for support, they will require that you apply all their updates before they assist. After all, one of them may fix your issue. Now you're going to be stuck doing this work during business hours, maybe rebooting a couple times, all while your staff is losing productivity because they're idle. In the desktops category, it is important to confirm that all your deployed equipment has a management and antivirus agent on it. You can't protect what you don't know about. This can be accomplished by having someone visit each device and confirm, or you can compare an inventory list to the installed agents list. We recommend this is done quarterly, but it's certainly at least annually. At BMT, we're big believers in standardization. If you have a mix of different operating systems or versions of Office, you can run into compatibility problems. It also makes your environment more complex and therefore more difficult to support. You can imagine in the enterprise clients we work with, thousands of PCs, the more standardized you get them, the easier the effort is going to be to support them. Speaking of support, Microsoft ended mainstream support for Windows 7 on January 14th of this year. We brought this to our clients' attention a year or more before the deadline, giving them plenty of time to budget for and perform the upgrades. For mobility or remote access, all security experts agree multi-factor authentication is critical to keeping your system safe. In the event an employee falls prey to a phishing attack and unknowingly gives their username and password away, the hackers won't be able to gain access to your corporate systems as a result. This one security control can prevent losing days of productivity to ransomware or having to notify all your clients you've had a breach. In the communications category, we recommend all our clients have a backup internet connection. If you have fiber, this usually costs around $100 a month for a backup cable connection. It can be looked at like a supplemental insurance policy. With many people working from home, this connection is now critical to keep them working. If your primary fiber connection goes down, staff can remote in over the backup connection. As we see here, this client had cable already and felt the additional expense was not worth the possible risk. So we scored the item green for them. Infrastructure. Are your critical servers locked away so they can't be tampered with? Here's another one that has the X next to it. All HIPAA, every regulatory compliance framework is going to want to make sure this is done. As you can see by these notes, this client does not have their equipment secured, but feels that with their small office and with someone always keeping an eye out, they're safe. Is there sufficient cooling to keep the equipment running optimally and from failing prematurely? Many times when we discuss this with clients, we find that the building HVAC system works well 10 months out of the year, but in July and August, things can get warm in the server room. This client is comfortable with the building HVAC and has a card in the UPS that will send an alert if the temperature gets too high, allowing them to shut the systems down and avoid damage to the components. Other clients invest in supplementary AC, but in many cases, just a vent on the bottom and top of the door is enough to let the hot air escape and the cool air be pulled in. And in the final category, applications. In this category, we score if each of your line of business applications are current and if you have a support contract for them. We also look to where the renewal notifications are going. For many companies, they go to a single person and then that person moves on. Their mailbox is monitored for a while, but eventually less and less mail comes in and it becomes an afterthought. And then the business may miss renewal notifications tied to a deadline. We set up a distribution list for our clients where their staff gets a copy and so do we, so multiple eyes are on it. This makes sure renewals happen on time and you take advantage of any discounts that are available. In summary, the IT health check is a simple, effective method to understand what your true IT needs are. We provide the service at no extra charge to our managed service clients. And as we've shown, the report is not overly technical or complicated. It doesn't need to be. We've had a discussion, talked through your various options and costs, and agreed on a score, and the notes reflect that. Clients rave about how the report allows them to plan investments and upgrades around what their needs are. And speaking of, here's some testimonials from our clients. I want to take a minute and just read the top one. The IT health check is a service that some may be skeptical of, but everyone should have done. We discovered that several of our crucial components were at or near the end of life, and were able to evaluate our options thoroughly based on the helpful information provided in the report. I would recommend anyone with reliance on computers has this done at least once a year. You just don't know what unknown skeletons are in your IT closet until the IT doctor does his checkup.
All right, thank you, Stu. So that concludes this afternoon's presentation. Thank you again for joining us. With that, we are going to open the Q&A session, and below is the code that we'll be following up with everyone and providing a copy of today's presentation. And I will be asking for this lunch code in order for you to redeem the Grubhub gift card. So with that, we will open up the Q&A. Stu, do you have any questions in the queue?
Yeah, I see 2 as of now. But again, you guys can use the chat window there to send us some more. So the first question here, what if I'm using a different service provider? I assume they mean IT service provider. This is a common scenario for us. The report is fact-based. It's a great way for you to audit the service you're receiving and better manage your provider. So there's no issue there with having a different service provider. How much does it cost is the next question here. Well, I would encourage you to give us a call or reach out so we can discuss your environment. But generally speaking, if you have 10 or less users, the cost is about $1,000. Up to 50 users, about $3,000. And then for each additional group of 100 users or devices, it's about $2,000. And today we want to offer a 25% discount to anyone that attended this webinar.
All right, great. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, no, I don't see any others coming in. So I want to thank everyone for their time today. And I hope you enjoy lunch on BMT.